Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the World Crypto Network. Thanks so much again, guys, for joining us on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday afternoon. As usual, we got blue skies and birds singing, and we got a lot of crypto to talk about. Now, let me just say, guys, it's been kind of a slow week, but there's still a bunch of news, so I'm going to go through that right now with your quick bits segment. So let's just start it right off. It looks like we got two new podcasts joining the WCN audio stream. We got one of those people named Ansel Linder from bitcoinandmarkets.com, and one guest that we have right here on today's show, Mr. JW Weatherman's Under the Microscope. So definitely, guys, check that out. Check out our audio stream. We have all of these links in the show notes from these quick bits and from our main topics as well. In the other news, Bitcoin Core 0.16 has been released, with the main features being further optimization and a brand new BEC32 address format and replaced by fee turned on by default. Very, very cool stuff, guys. And then Jameson Lopp, the pretty famous developer over there at Bitgo, actually the former lead developer of Bitgo, has left to start his new venture, which is a premium cold storage solution for sovereign individuals who want to be their own bank without having to overcome tons of technical hurdles. And that's pretty much what Jameson did over there, was really work on the low-level stuff, providing the information to create APIs for the higher-level developers to actually interact with. So very cool, Jameson. Really excited to see what he's going to do. This is another trend of major developers leaving large companies to start their own ventures, or to just to plain work on Bitcoin, like Gregory Maxwell. So this is great to see more and more Bitcoiners gain their independence because of Bitcoin. Very awesome stuff. And then look at this, guys, in the news, from calling it a fraud to now saying that they may have to adapt to counter the crypto adoption. JPMorgan seems to have come full circle in only a matter of a few months. You guys got to check that article out. Pretty great. And SegWit transactions have hit 30% for the first time. We have new all-time highs on the SegWit front, thanks to, of course, Coinbase and other companies, Coinbase, Bitfinex, and others going ahead and activating SegWit. Still waiting for blockchain. Come on, guys, let's go. And then speaking of exchanges, speaking of Coinbase, looks like they got hit with two separate class action lawsuits in 2 days. The first claiming that the insiders benefited from the Bitcoin Cash launch, which, that was a whole fiasco in and of itself. And then the second, talking about unlawfully holding onto cryptocurrency amounts sent via email. So that's going to be interesting. Back in the day, you could send a bunch of, crypto in the email with Coinbase, and apparently they have held it if the other person didn't claim it. So interesting stuff. A great article, guys, just came out. The bullish case for Bitcoin. You have to check this out. I'm really excited about it. I can't pronounce the guy's name because, again, it's these names, they get pretty crazy, but you guys got to check it out. Really awesome. A really awesome article. I have a link to that. It's called The Bullish Case for Bitcoin. 4 parts. Lots of amazing stuff in there. Definitely recommend it. And then finally, guys, I did a poll on Twitter about what we should actually be calling the applications built on top of Lightning, and it looks like about 68% of the people with over 800 votes said that we should probably be calling them zaps instead of laps. So who knows? It's early days, guys. We're going to start coming up with names for all this funny stuff. So really, really cool stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists. Super proud and super happy to bring you guys these opinions every single week from these guys. We have a couple of returning members, but also some new people as always. So let's introduce these guys. Joining us again, we got Mr. Francis Pouliot from CadillacC.com and Bills.com. Francis, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Vortex. It's going to be a great show today. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for coming back. And then for the first time, we got Mr. Jason Stapleton, host of the Jason Stapleton program at jasonstapleton.com. Jason, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet, man. Awesome. Really glad to have you here. We're excited to see what your opinions are about the crypto space. And then joining us once again, we have the security researcher and founder of BTCthreats.com, Mr. JW Weatherman. JW, how you doing?
Good, man. Happy to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We got JW, guys. You guys definitely got to check out his podcast. He's got some really interesting stuff lately called Under the Microscope. And again, we just added Under the Microscope podcast to the World Crypto Network audio stream. So you guys are going to be hearing a lot more from JW. And finally, our special guest joining us today or this evening in his time, Mr. Ivan from Ivan on Tech YouTube channel. Ivan, how you doing?
I'm good. Amazing to be here, Vortex. Thank you for the invitation. I think you wrote to me after I covered Lightning and explained how Lightning works on the testnet. So amazing to be here. Going to be exciting to talk about the news. And yeah, I'm looking forward.
Yes. Dude, you have some amazing content, man, Ivan. You guys got to check it out. It's Programmer Explains, all sorts of good stuff on there. He's got stuff about every kind of cryptocurrency, including stuff about Bitcoin. And I really, really liked his explanation of Lightning and a bunch of other Bitcoin technologies. Guys, he breaks it down really easy for you. Really recommend it. This is really a great panel. So let's go ahead and get to it with the very first. Actually, before I mention that, I always forget to mention this, guys. I've been trying to mention this for the past few times, but I just wanted to include it into the quick bit section, which is the Mayer multiple, because it is kind of important for people to understand, to start thinking longer term and not pay so much attention to the day-to-day price action. You know, of course, we all get addicted to that, but you know, at the same time, it's really important. So the Mayer multiple really is the spot price divided by the 200-day moving average. So it filters out all the noise, guys. So, you know, right now we're looking at about 1.27, which is about, you guys got to research this, the Mayer multiple, but that's a buy signal. That means it's time to buy, people. We are in the buy territory. So check that out. All right, but now let's go ahead and go into the topics. The very first topic, of course. All right, so let's see. The very first topic, the big topic, guys. This is the big news of the week. This topic might run a little long, actually, but the crypto exchange Poloniex acquired by payment startup Circle. So this is huge, you guys. The Poloniex crypto exchange is one of the biggest exchanges in the crypto space, and actually is one of the exchanges that has the most crypto to trade, the most pairs. And so and of course, we do know that it is backed by Goldman Sachs. So this is really an interesting play, because this is basically Goldman Sachs entering the crypto space. And again, you guys, just a few months ago, we had people like Jamie Dimon calling it a fraud. And now we got futures on Wall Street, and we got Wall Street buying up these crypto exchanges. So let me just ask my panelists. Let's go to Ivan first. Ivan, like, is this a trend of what's to come? Does Jamie Dimon now have to go buy Bittrex in order to compete? What is this the trend? Are we seeing Wall Street really start to go further even than dipping their toe, but maybe dipping in both their feet?
So something interesting is that it's not only Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, they actually, made action out of their words. But you hear Goldman Sachs coming out and saying that cryptocurrencies are a threat to their business model. You hear Bank of America saying the same thing, and JPMorgan. And this all happened during just the last few days. So all of them have come out and said that, in fact, cryptocurrencies are significant, and in fact, it is a threat to future business model. And something very interesting is that I think that for the past few years, the traditional finance, they have been just, closing their eyes and just hoping that cryptocurrencies will disappear. That, we do not have to adapt. We do not have to do anything. We just close our eyes and we hope that the cryptocurrencies go away. So definitely, yes, I think we will see more and more of this trend. Something that I find extremely interesting with this purchase of Poloniex, that Poloniex is acquired, is the whole Tether situation. Because, of course, we've all heard about the conspiracies and the theories and the worries people have been having. And so when Circle purchases Poloniex, in my view, number one, they must have done some kind of auditing. I mean, they must know what they're doing when it comes to the Tether situation. And number two, what is interesting is that they have plans on adding new pairs, trading pairs, and the USD pair is planned for the future. So both the fact that Tether might not be as bad as people expect, and also that Tether might be irrelevant in the future when the real USD pair is added. So definitely several angles to this story.
Absolutely. And people have been, continuing to freak out about Tether, probably mostly thanks to the troll that we lovingly call Bitfinex, right? That guy's been really continuously pushing tweets out pretty much 24/7. If you guys analyze his tweets, you'll see that he's been basically posting 8 hours a day, every single day for many weeks. And so there might be some additional financial motivation behind that, but that's of course pure speculation. But it is getting kind of crazy that all of this FUD around Tether, yet nothing happens. And again, really good point, Ivan, that Tether is really only temporary, right? It was always meant to be a temporary solution, guys. This is not going to be how we're going to be operating in the next few years. We just need some way to be able to get into crypto very easily from fiat, right? And back and forth. And so this is kind of as I've been saying for months now, this is just the best kind of an only solution we have right now. But there are people working on better solutions, and we hope that those come online pretty soon. So let's go to Francis next. Francis, what do you think about this huge company, Goldman Sachs? I mean, basically, it doesn't get any closer to the traditional financial system and fiat than Goldman Sachs. Like, what do you think about them pretty much buying one of the largest crypto exchanges?
Well, yeah, I love the fact that this discussion isn't really about like a payments or crypto startup acquiring another crypto startup, and everybody's kind of seeing through, that it's the backers and investors of Circle. So I have a lot of, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So first of all, I mean, that's a pretty big news for the crypto industry as a whole. I mean, that's one of the biggest exits or acquisitions that I think that we've seen in the space. I think there was a Bitcoin, was it ASIC miner that got acquired in China? But I mean, that's as a startup ecosystem, this is good for startups, because investors in startups, they want to see those big exits, right? So if you're raising money as a startup, you want to see these startups get acquired by other big exchanges or financial institutions, because that's usually one of the big exit strategies that you're presenting to your investors. So I think this is also one of the big first industry consolidations. So I mean, we have seen a few industry consolidation plays in the past, but that's definitely a huge one. I mean, that I don't know if you want to talk about the amount also that's suggested, but when I saw this news,
400 million, I believe they bought this exchange for. That's some significant amount of money, right? $500 million. That's basically the entire amount of crypto market cap right now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the numbers that's been floating around. I don't think there's been anything official, but like when I first saw that, my initial gut reaction was like, it must have been a quarter $2 billion or something like that. So obviously that shows the interest. So there's a lot of things that Circle can now do that it probably couldn't do before. And I think one of the things that we want to know is, why did Circle do this, right? This is kind of like one of the questions. Why did they acquire Poloniex, and why did they pay such a large amount of money for it? One of the things that is interesting is that a lot of the funds that are out there have like three cryptos, offer three cryptos: Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin. And one of the reasons that is that the big custodians out there, the biggest custodian out there, Coinbase, for example, they have just Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. So if you're trying to do some kind of fund and you're looking for a custodian or custodian solutions, Poloniex, you can criticize them all you want, but it's really, really extremely difficult to hold a huge amount of cryptos, like in hot wallets, and have cold storages. So that whole entire infrastructure of hot wallets and multi-sig wallets of all sorts of different coins, I find that really interesting that it kind of becomes available for Circle. And if you see who's behind Circle, you can have those big investors now be in full control of the supply chain. So they have the custodian, the liquidity. So they're really building their stack. One of the things that this allows Circle to do is obviously like a huge opportunity for them is to have the quick buy, from any altcoin to any other altcoin. This is something that an exchanger or a broker like Coinbase, whose kind of big I guess value proposition is to make the onboarding and offboarding really, really easy and simple. I could definitely see them coming up with some kind of Shapeshift-like solution on top of that. So there's many different things. I think it's pretty incredible that I can't help but feel like really happy for the Poloniex team, because the idea of building an exchange from scratch and kind of building it, growing it, and then like selling it. You can criticize Poloniex all you want, but that's a pretty unbelievable achievement, especially given the fact that kind of all the big exchanges, almost all of them have suffered some serious losses and have like really dim, a lot of them have really dim chances of exits just because they had so much losses. So I can't help but, applaud the Poloniex founders for this incredible achievement. But on the negative side, Poloniex is a huge central point of failure for the crypto ecosystem. In fact, like I remember a few years ago, we used to joke that, if Poloniex goes down, like 90% of all the alts if Poloniex gets hacked, like 90% of all the alts are just gonna collapse. So Poloniex is not the only one, but it's still a very big central choke point, right, of the ecosystem. The fact that it is in the hands of regulated financial institutions, and the fact that Circle is very well known for having a very proactive regulatory approach, we could see some kind of hazards coming from that. So yeah, that's about my thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because I believe Eric Lombroso even posted a couple of tweets where he's talking about how not all of these people are exactly 100% clean, right? All the Poloniex people, and so there is room for some kind of deals that they can be done with regard to the crypto exchange. So it's going to be kind of crazy. Personally, of course, I'm not going to trust it. Now that it's with Goldman, I'm really not going to trust it. I much prefer, of course, exchanges that don't KYC. And so, and that's where the decentralized exchanges are really hopefully going to take off this year, because, for all that money that they bought that exchange for, it can still get hacked just as easily as it could last week, right? So at the end of the day, the central points of failure, as you mentioned, still exist. The problems with centralized exchanges still exist. And so now maybe if Poloniex goes down, it can take a good part of Goldman Sachs down too with it. But just one quick correction. I did say 400 million. I said the market cap was 400 million, guys. Obviously the market cap for the entire crypto is over 400 billion, not 400 million. It gets a little crazy, guys, when we start throwing around all these zeros in crypto land. All right, it gets nuts, but we're trying our best here. Next, let's go with Jason. Jason, what are your thoughts so far on the conversation and Goldman pretty much, right, buying this market, and Francis said, this is really good that I like to say Goldman is buying it, right? Because Circle is just a tiny little startup. It's what's really important here is the main influencer, the main investor in Circle is Goldman. So what are your thoughts on this so far, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a currency trader now for almost a decade, and so I'm real familiar with Goldman and the way they operate. And a couple of points from the that we have somebody coming in and somebody like Goldman who's going to be putting up money for and to be invested in the space at this point. But in terms of whether or not Goldman really believes in cryptocurrencies or not, I don't know. I know that the big way that Goldman makes a lot of its money is on trading, bond trading, equity trading, stock trading, currency trading. They've got like it used to be football fields worth of traders that are just working to make money for the company. And so I think what Goldman sees here is an opportunity to profit. And whether that's a long-term or short-term viability, I don't think they care. They're probably looking at it and saying to themselves, well, we did 37 billion, $40 billion last year in revenue. And they're saying, it cost us 400 million to dip our toe in the water on this crypto thing. Why not? Let's throw some money at it. It already cash flows, right? It's already $1 million. So, they put some money in it. They see how it goes. Just keep in mind that Goldman Sachs is the same guys who were selling toxic assets on, in the stock market and in tranches and pawning them off as AAA rated securities. So these guys are not always the sharpest tools in the shed. It doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't solidify cryptocurrencies as a future. What it does solidify is somebody's interested enough in this to put to try and make it mainstream. And I think that's a positive thing for the market as a whole.
Absolutely. Lots of good points in there, guys. I mean, the corruption of Goldman and other banks and exchanges on Wall Street definitely go back many decades. So interesting stuff. Let's hear from JW, the Bitcoin security researcher, man. What do you think about this craziness? I mean, are more exchanges going to be bought up this year? Is this the beginning of a trend? And really how secure is this? Are they any more secure than they were before?
Yeah, I mean, decentralized exchanges are definitely the solution. There's, one of the things that Bitcoin really represents is the fact that we've all realized that you can't take a bunch of sensitive data and put it in a database. It doesn't work like that. We have to take the things that are sensitive and distribute them out so that there's not one big juicy target that hackers can go after. And this is not going to change when the owners change hands. I think the most important thing about this is sort of as a teaching aid for everybody that's worried that the government's going to come and shut down Bitcoin. The more the sort of really well-connected political elites nibble around the edges, the more they get invested and enjoy profits from the crypto space, the less likely it is that there's ever going to be a major attack on that space, because it's not in their best interest. So I always try to remind people, governments don't really exist, right? You can't think of the government as like a monolithic thing with a will, this monster that just eats certain things and will kill certain things. It's a ton of competing political kind of groups. And if Goldman Sachs has some interest in this moving forward, that's a good indication that that over time we're going to have more and more of that, more of those people that have lobbyists, that have, you know, connections with the head of the CFTC saying, yes, keep up the good work, you know, talk good about Bitcoin. Those relationships slowly get infected with wanting to see this asset be successful. So I don't think they could shut it down anyway, right? I mean, it's not like it's within their power, but I think it will accelerate sort of understanding of how secure Bitcoin is.
Yeah, great point. It really does, you know, feel like that. The more that Wall Street gets in on Bitcoin, the more I feel like they're going to use their power to protect it, right? And that's kind of that's what other people were saying too about if the U.S. government begins to adopt, you know, Bitcoin more and more, for example, like in the military or wherever, they'll have such a huge incentive to keep it going and to protect it. And so that's very interesting. Yeah, I'm hoping that that's exactly how it plays out. That just more and more people, because you know, the more people to get into Bitcoin, the more people that want to see it succeed. And again, this is not just for themselves. It's not just self-interest, right? It's self-interest in addition to, you know, making sure everybody is good, because if Bitcoin is good, then everybody's good. And so helping Bitcoin helps yourself, but it helps everybody. And that's really the key here with Bitcoin, is that it really utilizes humans' greed, right? It really utilizes humans' greed for the better. And it's just really interesting how the game theory plays out. So great topic, guys. Does anybody else have anything else before we move on? Francis? I think you're muted, Francis.
Yeah, so just a quick thought. You know, when you think about like what did Circle really buy when they bought Poloniex, I mean, probably a big part of it is their database of users. And when you think about it, you know, the Poloniex database is a huge, massive honeypot for data points for the de-anonymization of crypto users. So one observation is that Bitcoin is not as affected as many of the alts when it comes to that, right? So if, you know, your altcoin is traded, like if 70% of your altcoin's volume is on Poloniex and, you know, the other 30% is on like a bunch of different exchanges, then, you know, 70% of your user base is potentially de-anonymized through that. In this, and you know, people need to also think that, you know, when you're doing a crypto to crypto exchange, in most jurisdictions, that's a taxable event, and one of the only ways to identify and spot a crypto to crypto exchange, since you cannot link that to fiat, right, or banking a jurisdiction, is to just literally have the database, right, of the users that did crypto to crypto exchanges. So from a crypto to crypto exchange point of view, you know, you can like. Decentralization of exchanges is possible right now, like mostly only for crypto to crypto exchanges, because the difficult part of decentralized exchanges is always the fiat transaction, right? And how do you have kind of a decentralized arbitration system where you have one fungible and you know, censorship resistant and irreversible asset being sent somewhere and fiat being sent on the other, whereas in crypto it's both ways. So I agree with JW, like, so, you know, users realistically don't really need the centralization efficiencies for crypto to crypto trading, and they don't really need the kind of legal protection for their fiat. So I mean, that is good, you know. Traders will not have a high barrier to entry from moving to something like Poloniex to something else. So hopefully this idea that right now, if you want to trade crypto, you can choose to do it on Poloniex, and where you're guaranteed, almost guaranteed, that all of your trade information, all your personal information has made its way up to Goldman Sachs and to Circle, and obviously, you know, regulated U.S. Government agencies. So that's another thing to think about. Like, so why did you know, what is that asset? You know, that asset is that database, and how can people profit from that database? Well, one of the ways to profit from that database is to expose all the data of the users to either other financial entities or regulators, in order to really solidify this position that, you know, Circle and Coinbase, their value added in the eyes of the government is that they're kind of coming in and regulating the space, providing all these data points. So I mean, this is definitely, so it's just to be clear, this is a move that I think most governments right now will be happy about. So the US government is probably happy about this move right now. But also, as JW said, I mean, if this becomes a super profitable venture, for Goldman Sachs, then maybe we just kind of weaseled our way into an institution that's now going to be, you know, a cheerleader for the crypto space. And given the connections of Goldman Sachs, and given the anti-Bitcoin sentiment of some of their big competitors, I mean, maybe that's a huge blessing in disguise.
Yep, I mean, it's true. I mean, I just love the great point you made, Francis, about how it's not a high barrier to entry to move your crypto. I mean, that's what's so great about crypto. It's because it is just information. We can move to a different service just right away if we feel like, and that's what really helps drive the competition in this space. Because if your product isn't good, I'll just instantly switch over to something else, right? And so that's what's really, really great about this space, is that we really do have actual competition, unlike the traditional financial system has had for the past 100 years. Zero competition at all. This is just pure competition, and that's another reason why this space moves so fast and continues to evolve at breakneck speed. So awesome points, Francis. Great. Thank you so much for that. Does anybody else have anything else, JW, or anything? Or
yeah, I was just as Francis was talking about that, I realized I should have mentioned that. Yeah, if you don't want to be an asset, right? You don't want to be in that database next time it gets sold. Coinbase is probably going to get sold, or they're going to go public. Don't buy on those centralized exchanges. You can do fiat exchanges on BISC. You can do localbitcoins.com. Don't give people your personal information. And it's not just governments and regulators that you have to worry about. That database that Poloniex just sold to Goldman Sachs, you have to think, do I trust every single employee that has access to that database not to throw it on a thumb drive and exchange it with some shady character for 100 grand, right? Their salary is maybe 100 grand a year. So do you trust everybody that has access to that database not to pull that information? You definitely shouldn't. And there's governments that would like that data, and then there's, you know, arguably scarier people that would like that data. So I really highly recommend you pay the extra 2 to 5% premium in order to do it, you know, peer to peer. And it feels scary, but it's not. Coinbase, Poloniex, they feel safe, but they're not.
Good points, man. They want you to feel all nice and warm and safe and federally insured, but really, of course, your data is going to be freaking leaked to more governments than you can shake a stick at. So be aware of that, guys. Of course, you know, this is early days, so we really got to be aware before all this crazy regulation, you know, that might set in and things like that. So, of course, the day traders don't care, right? The day traders are going to trade. So you guys are going to have fun with that. All right. Great points, guys. I think we can move on to the next topic. Let's see. Before we do that, if everybody could just please give us a thumbs up if you like what you guys are seeing. Give us a thumbs down if you don't. We are here every Sunday at noon Pacific time, just trying to bring you guys the latest Bitcoin and crypto information. So if you are new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button down below. We're getting close to almost 60,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for everybody who subscribed, and thank you guys so much for everybody who's listening to us now, both on the audio and live. Of course, we love the live viewers, but we love everybody that listens to the show, guys. So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. ASICBoost. Yes, ASICBoost is back in the news. The ASICBoost technology has been opened under the blockchain defensive patent license. And so let's go with you, Ivan, first on this. What do you make of this? Is this good news for the industry as a whole, or is this just, you know, more bad news for ASIC?
So first of all, what is interesting is that, in my view, this concerns more the Bitcoin Cash community than the Bitcoin community, because with the introduction of SegWit, you now have, I mean, when you have ASICBoost, you basically have two advantages. One, you have an overt and a covert advantage. So you can use ASICBoost in two different ways. And so when you use it covertly, well, you do something with the Merkle tree. You manipulate the Merkle tree and you rearrange the transactions. And now with SegWit, this suddenly becomes more expensive and not as efficient. So in that sense, I wouldn't say this is that focused on Bitcoin more than Bitcoin Cash, but definitely an interesting move. And the way I understand it, and you guys can correct me, the way I understand it is this is how it's going to work. So you have these companies, these organizations that have some kind of patents. They all have some kind of patent, and they might have different patents. And so if you want to use their patents, you need to join this group. And once you join this group of patenters, of organizations holding patents, you all can use each other's patents. This is how I understand the situation. And so in that sense, I mean, I see it as a positive thing. Currently, I can't think of some negative aspect to this. This definitely opens up more innovation and more reuse of patents, and just letting other players join the field. And it's going to be interesting what effects this will have on Bitcoin Cash, but also on Bitcoin community as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Let's go with JW on this. JW, what do you think about this? I mean, because obviously ASICBoost was the big point of contention and controversy last year during the scaling debate. You know, it was speculated that Jihan was, in fact, using covert ASICBoost. So is this good now that we have this opened up? And is it like Ivan says, where it's really kind of only a worry for Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah, it's kind of weird and stupid, because this whole ASICBoost thing, this is a security vulnerability, right? The whole concept behind proof of work is that you're proving that you've done work. And ASICBoost was a way to make it look like you had done more work than you had. It was maybe 20, you know, it depends on how you do the math, but maybe somewhere between 10 and 30% savings in the amount of work that you had to do. And if the point is to do work and prove that you did work, how could that not be a security issue, right? Like, people are saying, oh, it's just an optimization. Well, if the whole point of like building a pyramid is to show that you can stack really big, heavy blocks together, and that symbolizes something, and then you find out that there's a way to stack those blocks more efficiently, right, and make them really light, or bring in heavy equipment or something, then it just means that there's no longer a lot of work involved in stacking those blocks. So whatever you were depending on to be able to believe and trust about the difficulty of accomplishing that task, you can't depend and trust on anymore. That is a security vulnerability in the Bitcoin world. So the fact that the clowns that were mining wanted to go off and do Bitcoin Cash because it was going to retain that security vulnerability, just, you know, it just reeks of every altcoin that takes Bitcoin and then adds a security vulnerability. That seems to be the only market differentiator that any of these guys want to have. So yeah, I mean, I kind of don't care, but I guess it's kind of interesting that it's that anybody can use it now on Bitcoin Cash. But yeah, it doesn't even apply to Bitcoin because SegWit fixed it.
Awesome. So yeah, so I guess it does not apply too much to Bitcoin because of the SegWit fix. So great points. Thank you so much, JW. Yeah, it's really crazy. It's, to me, I always called it a cheat. Like, this really is, I mean, this is cheating. Like, this is what you're doing. You're cheating everybody else because you're getting a 30% plus advantage that nobody else is getting. And not only that, but I believe that Jihan did have like a patent for this. Is this right, JW, that Jihan did have the original patent for a while?
Yeah, it's kind of unclear. It does seem like he had the patent. The other thing that was really shady is that he set up the chips on all of his ASICs to be able to do this. I think Greg Maxwell pointed that out. So it's pretty obvious that that's why we have Bitcoin Cash, right? There was a security vulnerability. Some people were exploiting it and really being able to enjoy profits as a result of that. Other people weren't, because they were either afraid of the patent or didn't quite know how to do it. In the long run, if we had to stick with the transaction malleability security bug that allows for this, I'm sure that all the miners would have started using ASICBoost. And I don't know what the numbers are because it's covert, so you can't really tell. But my guess is that even towards the end, a lot of people were adopting it because it's kind of silly that you would mine and know that your competitor had a 30% advantage, right? And something with as small of a profit margin as mining, you either shut it down and go home, or you adopt ASICBoost. Or fortunately, in the case of Bitcoin, we just fixed the stupid bug, and now we can move on.
Yep, awesome points. I mean, it was built into the chips, people. I mean, Jihan built this into all of his mining chips. And then I think at one point he tried to deny it, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so this is that's what's up, guys, with ASICBoost. It is really crazy. I want to hear what Francis thinks about this as well, since he is a bit knowledgeable in the mining game there. Francis, what do you think about this? Is this a good thing for Bitcoin overall? Or I guess everybody's kind of saying that it doesn't even matter for Bitcoin, really only for Bitcoin Cash. And what do you think about Bitcoin Cash really kind of only existing because of ASICBoost?
Well, I think it does matter for Bitcoin a little bit. And, let's, taking a step back, the first thing is that this is just really, really interesting what just happened because of the nature of defensive patent license. So as far as I understand, the ASICBoost patent didn't belong to Bitmain. It actually belonged, well, at least in what I've been reading over the past few days, it belongs to a company called Little Dragon Technologies, which I think,
well, that's what it does now, right? But that's how it's always been, or
Well, it's essentially like you can only place a patent in a defensive patent pledge, like if you own the patent, right? So a defensive patent pledge is like you have a patent, and then you and what's interesting is also is like they did their own blockchain patent pledge. They didn't join like the Blockstream defensive patent pledge or any defensive patent pledge. They just started their own patent pledge, and they placed one patent in it, which was the ASICBoost patent. And in order to be able to use this patent, what you need to do is you need to agree to open up all your other patents and join the patent pledge, right? So now the situation we're in is that if any company wants to use ASICBoost legally, well, they can if they want without any problem or fear of repercussion or fear of any lawsuit, but all they have to do is to open up all their other patents. So this begs the question, if the only thing that this gives is that people can use the patent and open up all their other patents, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that Little Dragon Technologies believes that there are other patents out there, right? And they're doing this so that other patents become open. So now the question becomes, you know, what are these other patents, and you know what's going on out there? So in the article,
real quick, was that a software? Is this a software or a hardware patent or both?
I'm not sure.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not sure. I would have to check. I'm assuming it's a hardware patent, okay. But I'm not sure. But yeah, so so you got these guys that are offering ASICBoost to everyone. But the thing is also, if you look at the article, I mean, it seems like some people were using ASICBoost without owning the patent anyway, right? So they were doing something which is exactly like ASICBoost, but they didn't have the patent. And it's also possible, I wouldn't also be surprised that there's a few different patents on ASICBoost. I wouldn't be surprised, because patents, you know, they're not always, you know, internationally recognized, depending on from one country to another. But I don't see that being in any way bad. Like, I can't see any way where this is bad. You know, ASICBoost is an open secret. Everybody knows that ASICBoost is patented. And if we make ASICBoost available to everyone in exchange for opening up all the other patents, it makes explicitly the use of ASICBoost and not opening patent, you know, patent infringement essentially on Little Dragon Technology. In terms of that affecting not Bitcoin and Bcash, well, it seems like it doesn't affect Bitcoin, and it only affects Bcash, except if there's some other patents out there that are on Bitcoin, and that may be that could be, for example, exposed or opened as a result of that. So I'm not a patent expert, I'm not a hardware expert, but I see that as being something good and definitely something cool. And if that yields any significant result, I mean, that would be great. But more than anything, this just makes me a little bit nervous about what other kind of patents out there. The article by Aaron, which published this news, also talked about something that I didn't know about, which was really interesting, is that one of Bitmain's people left Bitmain and started his own company, and then he got sued by Bitmain for patent infringement. And you know, a lot of the news regarding this defensive patent license are focused around this lawsuit between Bitmain and this other company. And it seems like the people who are involved in writing about this have made some kind of connection, which I wouldn't have made. So it is possible that perhaps this patent was created specifically to protect other small manufacturers from becoming sued by Bitmain or something like that. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of secrets around ASICBoost. There's a lot of, I don't know, it's just a really strange story. It's really weird. And it just still feels to me like there's kind of part of the puzzle that's missing to most people. And I'm just, you know, curious and eager to figure out what that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a whole history, guys. Like, this is, you can go back and, you know, there's even like, you know, intrigue, murder, like crazy stuff, guys, that has to do with this ASICBoost patent. So definitely, if you guys want to dig down the rabbit hole, Google is there for you. So we're not going to dig that far down the rabbit hole, people. But let's go ahead and go to JW. I believe he has a final comment on this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is a weird situation from multiple angles, but at the basic level, Bitcoin's open source software. So being able to patent anything related to that is very unusual, because the whole point of open source software is that you publish it, right? And once you publish it, it's prior art. You can't turn around and patent something like that. And so this is just a weird case where open source software had a flaw called transaction malleability. It wasn't very important to anybody, or it would have been fixed sooner, right? It was like, well, we know that that bug is there, but it doesn't seem to be a big enough priority on sort of our punch list, right? We have other stuff that we're working on. And so it didn't get addressed for quite a while. And as a result, somebody patented the ability to exploit that vulnerability. Very strange situation, right? They called it an optimization, and of course, patent people are too dumb to know the difference between an optimization and a exploit of a security flaw in open source software. But that's what's going on here. That's a weird sort of event. I don't know if that's ever happened before in open source software at all. But the bug is fixed as far as Bitcoin's concerned, because transaction malleability is fixed. I'm not at all worried that there's other patents floating around out there related to optimizing the proof of work algorithm. I think it was a mistake, but it was not considered a very important mistake. And then the smartest people in the world looked at it and redesigned it and made sure that that's not going to happen again. So it's possible that there's a flaw. I doubt it. But the possibility that there's a flaw, it's been found, and another patent has been filed around it seems extremely unlikely to me. But we'll see how it all plays out.
Yep.
And I think, like, when I was talking about other patents, I think they're probably not software patents or exploit patents, but probably something like, oh, we designed a new way to have parallel chips or something like that, which makes our miner more efficient. And it's really important for people to understand. In terms of patents, I know a lot of people have different opinions on them. Some people, I don't necessarily disagree with all types of patenting, because to some degree, when you're investing a lot in R&D, there's you want to guarantee yourself to some degree sometimes a first to market advantage or anything, something of that nature. I mean, this is an open topic, but in the case of Bitcoin mining, patents are universally terrible, very, very bad. One of the things that makes Bitcoin mining a good alternative to things, for example, like proof of stake, why is proof of work so superior to proof of stake? One of the reasons is just the complete lack of barrier to entry to proof of work, right? So with proof of work and the absolute level playing field that you have, that anybody can even make a miner from scratch and anonymously plug it in the network, and you're directly competing with all the other proof of work providers. In the case of proof of stake, there's all sorts of problems. One of the chief ones being out there is that once you have a proof of stake system, one of the only ways for people to enter the new proof of stake process is to buy coins from the producers of the coins, which are competitors, right? So in terms of mining, you don't have to have the permission of the existing proof of work providers in order to engage in proof of work. Whereas in other systems, the big flaw, for example, is that you need to have some kind of permission or some kind of deal with the existing proof of stake providers in order to acquire those new coins, which are being held in balances and engaged in proof of stake. So if you have something which prevents people from competing openly, like a hardware patent, the entire concept of proof of work, which relies on absolute open competition and not barrier to entry for security, is put in jeopardy, right? So if you cannot realistically compete with others because of a barrier to entry, which is a patent enforced by a government, then you're kind of introducing a security flaw. And one of the big problems is those patents are not something that you can usually change. I think with a proof of work change, I think most of the patents are ways to make the actual ASIC machine more efficient. And from what I understood, most of the hardware patents wouldn't really change or couldn't be rendered useless by a change of proof of work. It would be really, really hard to do that. So that's a risk introduced in Bitcoin, a threat introduced in Bitcoin, which we really don't seem to have some kind of decentralized answer to. If patents... Yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like you're more worried about the hardware patents than the software patents, because I mean, software patents are kind of crazy, right? Somebody in the chat mentioned there's actually a software patent around a white button that says "okay" on it. I believe so. I don't think too many people pay attention to that because I've seen a lot of white buttons out there. But go ahead, Francis.
Yeah, and software patents are not really enforceable also because anybody can release kind of open source code out there that infringes on a patent or something like that. Well, you can't really have a huge manufacturing plant which is making $4 billion a year in revenue and paying taxes and shipping internationally and having to pay duties and stuff like that. If you're a hardware manufacturer, like you cannot really escape the laws of your jurisdiction, right? You cannot you can't really have that hacker mentality that you just release and open source something, which is a huge difference. And software patents are really difficult to enforce as well, whereas hardware patents, they're very easy to physically enforce them.
Yeah, so that's why the cause for concern is mostly for the hardware patent. So I think JW, did you have one final comment on this or no?
Yeah, no, that actually everything that Francis just said makes a lot of sense. I think that can be an issue if somebody was to patent something and become way more efficient. But really that game is all about trying to get to commoditization of cutting edge hardware, and patents can slow that process. That's why I'm not a fan of them in really any context. They can slow that process in Bitcoin mining, but I don't think that they're going to be a big issue. I mean, we're already down at like 7 nanometer chips. There's a lot of competition in the space, and there's, if somebody files like patent, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat and get around it when you're talking about hardware manufacturing. So I'm with them. It's definitely a concern, and we should keep an eye out for it. But I'm not too worried about it.
Very cool. And I believe Ivan has a final comment on this. Go ahead, Ivan.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the whole mindset we need to have. I mean, we should have the mindset that it doesn't matter if someone creates a patent, it doesn't matter if someone tries to spam the network, it doesn't matter if someone tries to find some kind of vulnerability. Our mindset should be that the network should handle it. And SegWit is a good example of how we were able to do that. But I think it's important so that we don't fall into this victim trap, that we suddenly see ourselves as victims. And these bad people on the other side, they now have created a patent. We shouldn't be like that. Should be instead that, there is this problem, let's fix it somehow, because the network should be able to handle it. It's an open, permissionless network. Of course, people will try to patent, gain some kind of advantage, spam the network. We will have bad actors, and our mindset should be that, all right, how do we fix it and not see ourselves as victims?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's another way of saying that almost is like cypherpunks write code, right? Like Gregory Maxwell, everybody was worried about the ASICBoost, and then Gregory Maxwell reverse freaking engineered the damn thing and proved its existence. So yeah, good point, Ivan. This is in this world, in where code is law, essentially, right? This is where code speaks. This is where cypherpunks write code. This is where we need to be thinking adversarially, right? Thinking like the network is designed, thinking in game theory, thinking about, okay, there's going to be an issue. We see it coming. Instead of trying to be scared about it, let's figure out a way around it. So very good point, Ivan. I think we can end this topic then and move on to the final topic. So if you are watching, please hit the thumbs up button. That helps us get into more streams. If you guys are new to the stream, please hit that subscribe button. And of course, we also have our audio feed. So if you guys can't make the live shows, or if you prefer the audio, we definitely have both our show, this show here, the Bitcoin News Show, and all of our other shows, as well as syndicating other shows like JW show under the microscope. So let's go ahead and go to our final topic, ladies and gentlemen. I guess it makes sense that we would just kind of transition into this, because this is another mining story. So AMD actually released a statement stating pretty much that their GPU business could take a serious hit if crypto, if people stop buying miners for crypto. So it seems to me that the mining business has become a huge part of both AMD and NVIDIA's business, right? A huge part of their selling of their cards. And so I just want to maybe ask Ivan here, Ivan, like, is AMD and NVIDIA so entrenched into the mining space now that if we were to see like a huge dip in mining or in the price, could we see AMD and NVIDIA just have their profits be completely slashed?
I think it is a sensible comment for them to make, because we've seen this huge rise in prices, this really significant hype during the past few months and during the autumn here in the northern hemisphere. And so therefore, of course, they have seen a huge increase in profits and revenue and sales. And I think it is just a common sense that now they need to tell their investors, tell the world that, what, this might be temporary. This might be only a temporary thing. And we're talking about GPUs. We're mostly talking about coins that are not Bitcoin as well. It's all about the altcoins. And I personally think, of course, not financial advice, but in a few years or 1 year or in the near future anyway, I think we will see some kind of collapse when it comes to cryptocurrencies as an entire market, because there are so many projects that are prepaid. And this is an interesting conversation I had with Julian Hosp on my channel from 10x. So we basically came to the conclusion that all of the projects are prepaid. A lot of money is being raised. We mentioned just before the show that ICOs are getting so much money, they don't know what to do with it. They become lazy. Sometimes they don't even build things. And of course, in that sense, I think we might see some kind of significant crash that can be compared, for example, to the dot-com crash, or that can be compared to the train mania in Great Britain. And whenever you have this new great technology, it always creates some kind of bubble, because people will love to speculate, will love to hype. So in that sense, of course, now that NVIDIA, AMD, they have seen these huge increases in sales because the hype is on their side, I think they just need to warn the investors and warn the public that, you know what, this might only be temporary.
Yeah, very good point. And I think that's kind of coming too, right? When we have these coins that have no technologies but are valued in the tens of billions, what else can we say? But we are in a speculation mania, right? So let's go to JW next. JW, what do you think about this? Is this a good thing maybe, or a bad thing? Will alts in general completely suffer if there were to be some kind of big, huge miner shortage?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what Ivan said. Like, this is just a result of a sort of a temporary confusion about the value that Bitcoin created. And so people are rushing into all these alts, trying to find the next Bitcoin. If you look at the alts, if you hit me up on Twitter, I've got a top 10 sort of review of all the top 10 alts. Not one of them has any chance of being able to back up any of the claims that they make. So they say they have X, Y, and Z capabilities. Their design doesn't even allow them to have it, let alone their code and their implementation, right? This is all scammy nonsense garbage, and real legitimate companies like NVIDIA are caught up in it, and they probably are smart enough to go, wait a minute, there's no there. This part of the business is going to go away at some point. Let's start getting the word out. And I'd be willing to bet they're being very conservative about investing a lot in additional manufacturing capabilities or additional speed. They're probably looking at this as a very weird temporary phenomenon that's going to go away. And there's also a kind of a weird, interesting, another way that it can go away. And that is that Litecoin, as stupid as it is, people are actually investing in ASICs for Litecoin. So GPUs are only useful because they're, the fastest sort of generic processors that you can get your hands on. But if a coin actually does survive, and it's very tragic that Litecoin has survived long enough to get to this point, it will actually result in people investing in application-specific hardware. And for a layman, it just means a machine that's specifically designed to do that calculation. And a machine specifically designed to do that calculation is always going to be faster than a generic machine. It's just how the universe works. So this GPU mining craze, it's got to come to an end at some point. I hope it's because, like Ivan said, people realize that this stuff is all just garbage and it goes to zero, and people move over to Bitcoin. But one way or another, it's going away, and it's not gonna be a good part of their business forever.
Yep. Good points. Let's go with Francis on this. So, Francis, what do you think? Do you agree with JW that this is just a temporary influx, maybe with this ICO bubble, and the NVIDIA and AMD are just kind of trying to warn their investors that this really could be temporary?
Yeah, well, my first observation is, like, I'm really happy that Bitcoin doesn't have this problem, because the Bitcoin proof of work is cannot be reused for anything else that's useful. So the idea that the double SHA-256 is completely useless because the only thing that it can do is to mine Bitcoin, that's a huge protection that Bitcoin has, because that's an opportunity for arbitrage, like for hardware, for using your hardware to mine Bitcoin versus doing something else. That's a whole kind of vector of possibilities, which is not possible with Bitcoin because you can't reuse it. So the fact that all of these altcoins and all of these graphic cards and all this economy is dependent on this arbitrage between what can I do with my GPU normally? Can I mine AI? Like, can I repurpose it for AI rendering? Can I do some all sorts of weird stuff with it?
Maybe we can mine Richard Hart's new coin.
Yeah, exactly. And like the whole emergence of the second market of GPUs, which doesn't exist in ASICs, introduces all these kind of weird things. I mean, I wouldn't really want to be in AMD's shoes right now, because if you think about it, like their existing client base is being priced out by this kind of short-term craze, and now they have a decision, which is, okay, so we're going to raise the prices of our graphic cards and, you know, kind of screw over our gaming, you know, user base that's been supporting us from the beginning. Should we engage in invest in additional manufacturing capacity? But in that case, you know, whether if the altcoin market goes to zero, then, you know, we've kind of just completely collapsed the price of our commodity and we're overproducing. So also in a weird way, you got these two big public companies that are kind of, you know, to some degree right now, inherently invested in the existence and continuous addition of an offering of shitcoins on the market, which are GPU mineable. So that's also an interesting thing, right? You got these big giants, which, as JW said, you know, every altcoin's, you know, kind of destiny is either to become an ASIC because the value is large enough, or, you know, if altcoins don't become ASICs, you know, at a fundamental, you know, level, that's just because they're not valued that much. You know, people really don't value them as much. So it's kind of like the long-term road is like either you go to an ASIC or you go to zero. So what this is just really strange. I mean, I don't know what to think about this. I think AMD is really right. Obviously, Ivan and JW are right. AMD is really right to kind of send a warning to the investors, which is, you know, you guys might be, you know, buying our stock right now, thinking like this is going to go forever. I think they're also trying to distance themselves. A lot of public companies have used, you know, GPU mining and all that kind of stuff to really pump their stock a lot. And I think they're going to come down. I mean, this is a great move by AMD, obviously, to warn the investors that this is something that's very temporary. This could put our business in danger. So, you know, really kind of distancing themselves from the hype that some other companies have been doing. I think the SEC and public companies will look at statements like that from AMD and really think that's a really responsible, that's really good, you know, corporate responsibility on that side. And, you know, like JBU said, I think all the altcoins, I mean, I personally don't really feel like there's demand for the mining of the altcoins. And first of all, like we can't have like that many, too many proof of work altcoins out there. I mean, like the idea of proof of work is that it's a network effect. And technically, I mean, I believe that you only need one proof of work. So I think like all the proof of works are going to consolidate. Just from a functional point of view, you don't need 10 privacy proof of work chains. Like you need one, you know, proof of work chain that maybe has some additional privacy feature. Highly dubious, right, that these privacy features actually work and won't go into Bitcoin. But I agree with JW that like those coins don't really have a future. But you know, one thing that could happen is like if there is kind of one thing that worries me is that if there's a lot of GPU power out there and it kind of conversions onto one alt, then I mean, obviously that's not going to be Bitcoin. So all those GPUs aren't going to be used for Bitcoin. So that's not good, right? So none of that like hashing power can be reused for Bitcoin. The only thing that I could see being kind of like a problem is all of that GPU power consolidating on one altcoin, and then you know you have kind of a serious competitor for the first time ever, right? So I don't believe that's Litecoin. But for example, I am as a Bitcoin holder, I'm kind of worried about stuff like Grin and Mimblewimble that could really get a lot of hashing power from the GPU market eventually. And then if all the hashing power of all the nonsense altcoins kind of converge on one less nonsense altcoin, it could you know kind of be a weird situation where you have you know an actual contender to Bitcoin in the GPU space. But then again, obviously it would just become an ASIC eventually, and it would lose all sorts of comparative advantage, or all sorts of it would lose its comparative value to Bitcoin just by the fact that it becomes an ASIC and commoditized. Anyway, so it's definitely a really interesting space, and although we don't have the answers or really don't know what's going on with this, I think the important point is the fact that we're talking about a GPU manufacturer, you know, having its whole business model kind of disrupted by the altcoin and crypto. It's only really been a year and a half where these traditional businesses have their core business model just disrupted, like from from out of nowhere, like these black swan. So although, you know, I don't really have much insight on this market, I'm just super like stoked and happy that we're discussing the fact that these public companies are addressing crypto publicly and they're thinking about it. And it just shows to show like the massive effect that crypto has had on the world. And this is just another symptom of, you know, this phenomenon just becoming super mainstream and super important. So, you know, the effects that we, you know, crypto is leaving its mark. Whatever you say, it's leaving a huge dent on traditional industry sectors.
And of course, it is just the beginning, right? It's still very, very early days, as we like to say over here on the WCN. Yeah, I mean, just lots of good points. I mean, people don't really realize that, look, alts go to ASIC, and then, you know, to Moon, or they go to zero. Like, that's just the way it is. This really, mining really does present, proof of work presents a zero-sum game, which is why a lot of these coins went to proof of stake, you know, right? They think that will possibly save them. But at the end of the day, all the value will just move to, you know, what's the most secure. And the most secure financial network with the longest history will be Bitcoin, as it is now and as it will be in the future. And, you know, people just need to understand this, that, look, the planet can only sustain one actual proof of work chain at scale. And when I mean scale, I mean real scale, as in billions of transactions, as in all the AI, as in all of humanity using it. The planet itself really can only sustain one major proof of work chain. So this is, and always has been, a zero-sum game when it comes to mining. So very important stuff, guys. Again, you know, I mean, alts go to GPU, then they go to ASIC, and then they go to the Moon, or they go to zero. There's just kind of no in between. They can just stay around there for a while, like they like to do, at just like a 0.00001 value, and just hang around for eternity. But let's go to JW first, and then I think Ivan might have a final comment as well. JW, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to be a smart aleck and say that this is all malinvestment, right? This is the 2008 housing bubble all over again. People are confused. They don't really understand what consumers want. They don't really understand what the technology is, the problems it's trying to solve, and they don't understand where the value is. And they're just kind of like shooting in a general area, and it's creating all of these weird distortions in the economy, just like the housing bubble did in 2008. But it's temporary and it'll end, and Bitcoin will still be solving the problems that it was designed to solve. And yeah, so we just got to ride it out. But if you really want to invest in an altcoin, there's an altcoin that you just really got to get your hands on. It's called Number 2. And the basic unit of account, you know, just as a reference to malinvestment, is the Maltard. So if you want, you can pick up some Maltards. I'm not sure where to buy them, but I'm sure somebody will have them.
There you go, guys. JW's Number 2 coin. That's a bit of an inside joke. You guys got to really check out his podcast. There's some funny stuff around this Number 2 coin. You guys got to check that out. Number 2 coin. All right, Ivan, what is your final thoughts on this topic, man? What do you think?
No, I think we covered a lot. I really liked your point with one planet, one proof of work chain, because definitely it's all about security, also about hashing power, and in that sense, it is zero sum. But definitely interesting to follow the whole development when it comes to business, when it comes to actual sales, when we're talking about these huge companies such as NVIDIA and AMD. Going to be interesting to follow.
Absolutely, man. I think, as you know, Francis said, this is just an amazing feeling to have our little industry be touching all of these other industries now, all of these other mainstream industries like NVIDIA and AMD being forced to comment. So really interesting stuff, guys. All right, so I think we can end it here. We went over the 3 topics and had a great time. Hope you guys had a great time. Hope you guys learned something. We try to bring you guys the best news and information every single week here on the Bitcoin News Show that is on the World Crypto Network. So let's go ahead and say goodbye and farewell to our panelists. Francis, where can we find out more about you?
All right, you can find out more about me at Francis Pouliot on Twitter. You can also check out my websites, bylls.com and cadillac.com. And if you're in Montreal, you can also try to stop by the Blockhouse, which is our kind of community space here. And I'll just give a quick shout out to some of my engineers that have started to assemble our Blockstream satellite receiver. So over the course of the next week, I'm really happy we're gonna be downloading blocks from space. And not only are we gonna be downloading blocks from space, but we're gonna be seeding them in Montreal via mesh network. so that if ever the electricity, if ever the internet goes down in Montreal, then you have Galaxy, which is going to be downloading the blocks from space and just broadcasting them over some radio towers that we just plan to kind of install all over the city. So yeah, come check out the Blockhouse and Galaxy if you're ever in Montreal. We're doing a lot of cool stuff over here.
There you go, guys. Right there. If you guys are in Canada or near Francis and the internet goes out, fret not. He has an entire mesh network powered by Blockstream satellites, ladies and gentlemen. Bitcoin in space. That's right. So
yeah, it's not up yet, but if you're kind of a network person and you're around Montreal, you have a few antennas, you want to help out, definitely. Although the network is not launched, yeah, we definitely intend to have this censorship-resistant Bitcoin mesh network throughout the city. So yeah, thanks for having me, Vortex, and see you all next week.
You bet, you bet. Yeah, the Blockstream satellite stuff has really got me excited, guys. I mean, this is a real censorship-resistant, decentralized type of solution, you know, to every single because the other way to get the information right is just your ISP, centralized ISP. And how many of those are there in the United States? Like, you can pretty much count them on one hand, right? So this is just awesome to see the satellite the satellite coverage continuing to do more and more of the planet. And remember, right now it's only one way, but soon it's going to be two-way. You'll be able to actually broadcast transactions too. You'll be able to really send your Bitcoin in space both ways. So really awesome stuff. Thank you for that, Francis. JW, the Bitcoin security researcher, man, where can we find out more about you?
Let's see. You can check me out at jwweatherman.com and at weathermanIM on Twitter. So that's the best place to reach me. But that is freaking awesome. Nice job, Francis. I love stuff like that, man. That's killer.
You bet. Awesome, guys. And also check out, of course, JW's podcast that is now on the World Crypto Network. And that is, again, that's called Under the Microscope. And finally, let us say goodbye to our very, very special and esteemed guest, Mr. Ivan from Ivan on Tech. Ivan, where can we find out more about you, sir?
Thank you for having me, guys. It's been a blast. It's been amazing. You can find me at Ivan on Tech on YouTube, Ivan on Tech on Twitter, Instagram, and Ivan LI on Steemit. Definitely check me out on Steemit, guys. It was an amazing show, and it was a pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, and that is an accent, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. He is not in America. he is holding down over there. I believe, what, Sweden, right?
Yeah, broadcasting live straight out of Stockholm. Sweden.
Oh, there you go. Right, holding the crypto scene down there single-handedly in Stockholm. So thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you for your content, man, and thank you guys all for joining us so much. We had a great time. Thank you to my panelists so much for donating their time. Thank you for everybody in the chat, guys. It was just scrolling. We had a great time, and of course, if you guys missed the show, please join us in the comments below. Let us know what your thoughts are, and we will, of course, be back again next Sunday right here on the World Crypto Network. So until next time, guys, keep talking Bitcoin. We'll see you later.